day to members of the media and the listening public. I certainly want to thank members of the media for their attendance and tuning in to this press conference despite the short notice. I want to take this opportunity to respond to the President of the Bermuda Industrial Union pertaining to his statements in regards to the decertification procedure pursuant to the Trade Union and Labor Relations Act 2021 and to state the government's position on the matter. To be clear, the government has no intention of amending Section 57 of the Act pertaining to who gets to vote in a decertification ballot. As a general rule, the principle of which is reasonable and fairness is the foundation upon which the government of Bermuda weighs all decisions before taking action in any matter. In this instance, the government seeks to balance the interests of all workers in a bargaining unit with the interests of union members. The government will not be forced to accept a position that removes rights from workers within a bargaining unit. The Bermuda Industrial Union's position, as expressed to the Ministry of Labor, is that only current union members should have the ability to trigger a decertification ballot and form part of the 35% needed to make a decertification application. 2, only current union members should have the ability to participate in the decertification ballot irrespective of the existence of an agency shop agreement. Number 3, the Act should be amended to increase the threshold for decertification from more than 50% to 60% and increase the threshold for automatic decertification from 60% to 65%. The government's position on these matters are as follows. The decertification ballot in a workplace is administered by the government in the interest of all workers and is not a union ballot. As such, the government must consider the rights of the workers within the bargaining unit above the interests of the union. Any worker who falls under an agency shop has the right to participate in a decertification ballot, whether they are a member or not. Equal contributions regularly deduct their wages. Workers who do not fall under an agency shop and are not members of a trade union will not be considered part of the appropriate bargaining unit eligible to vote in a decertification ballot. Although all members of the bargaining unit, whether they are union members or agency shop, shall participate in a decertification ballot, it is only persons who are members of the union or former members of the union who can trigger the decertification. The government does not support the proposed legislative shifting the percentages from a simple majority to 60% for a decertification ballot or the shifting from 60% to 65% for the automatic decertification. This is not or consistent with the percentages required for certification and automatic certification process, which is a simple majority and 60% respectively. After reviewing trade union legislation in other jurisdictions, it is difficult for parties within a bargaining unit to participate in a decertification ballot irrespective of trade union membership. The changes to the Act that came into effect on the 1st of June 2021 to all persons within a bargaining unit in a decertification ballot. As a successful certification will trigger an automatic agency shop. I must also clarify that the changes to the Act in regards to this will not negatively affect the current position of unions or the current composition of bargaining units, as the practice under the Trade Union Act 1965 was for agency shop members to already participate in the decertification ballot. It should be noted that the government has been advised by the Attorney General's chambers through the production of this Act that all workers within a bargaining unit, irrespective of union membership, must have the ability to participate in a decertification ballot or be counted towards the number for automatic decertification where there is an agency shop in place. The amendments to the Employment Act 2000 and the consolidation of the Trade Union, Labor Relations, and Labor Disputes Acts that form this Act has been a collective effort of unions, employers groups, and the government. Throughout this process, the ministry has listened keenly to the unions and employer groups. As such, this government can confidently say that considerations of the legislation on this act is the most pro-union legislation passed by any administration in Bermuda. Thank you.
At this time, we'll take questions from the media, starting with Gareth.
Afternoon, Minister. Just for clarification, one point. Can you explain the difference between not being in a union, but being in an agency shop? How does what?
So prior to June 1st, what would happen is employees go through a process where they vote for certification.
Mm-hmm.
After that certification vote, you then have an agency shop ballot. The agency shop ballot determines whether or not the persons who do not support the union have to pay contributions toward the union. Where there's an agency shop in place, persons formerly would have to pay contributions directly to the union, or they had the option to pay contributions to a charity. After June 1, there is no longer a second ballot for agency shop. So any bargaining unit that is newly certified automatically has an agency shop in place.
Okay.
And persons either pay contributions directly towards the union, or they have split contributions towards the union and towards the charity. All employees that fall within that agency shop group have a right to participate in certification.
You've said quite categorically that you're not going to shift on this position. Chris Herbert and the BIU is also adamant that he's standing firm. Where do you think this might lead to? You say, for example, the union was to call for strike action. Would that maybe change your mind, or are you steadfast in sticking to your guns?
Certainly not. What we have to do is look at the position that they are in regarding the rights of workers in the workplace. We have a very firm position that we want to take away any rights workers currently enjoy. It is interest position that the unions actually try to be participating in the certification ballot. The government and the firm in the position that they no further amendments to the act pertaining to the
It's true that you're still actually in the BIU over this.
labor union.
We were impression. Can I just ask you a few quick questions on two other matters? Would that be okay?
Certainly.
Sure. First of all, the moratorium on jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I know Labour Minister Darren Richardson was saying that all these measures which are meant to improve the chances of getting Canadians back to work are arbitrary, appear to be conducted for political expedience. And I'll give you a direct quote from Richardson. The actual impact of these policy decisions is far from evident, especially when policy enactment is accompanied by a public plea for job application. Now, this morning at this morning's press conference, you made another plea for people to set applications for their CVs to Department of Workforce Development. Do you actually have any numbers as to how many Canadians have secured employment through the schemes? I mean, it's been running for, what, 7 months now? Do you have any data from Workforce Development as to how many people have found work through this?
And so when you look at it, it's the category. It's industry-wide, and it's very difficult to track that particular data. What we want to do is more frequent labor force surveys so we can get a better understanding as to what our employment rates are and the improvements within our job market. We are running specific programs with workforce development, and we are able to look at the success of those programs. However, it must be that there have been workforce contractions across the entire economy, with the exception And as a result of this contract, what we see is a great number of unions being displaced from the workforce. It is simple economic matter that if we restrict the amount of foreign labor that can come in and there's still for better services to be completed, then certainly we have to look at the pool of available employees, opportunity for employees. We have data in terms of process on unemployment, data in terms of process plan for assistance, supplemental unemployment benefit, and they're all increasing. And so we have to put measures in place to try to begin to reverse the trend. Policies that actually disrupt current maybe for operating in the labor market are the only effective measure to remedy the current problem, because if not, we'll see no reverse in that particular trend.
We're able to provide figures on the number of people who are on unemployment benefit, financial assistance, people who are signed up with workforce development.
Certain future statements that will ensure that we have a complete labor market landscape so that everybody is fully aware of our current economic condition and also our labor market condition, because I believe if the person that we're doing these measures for political expediency, it indicates to me that there's a disconnect between what they're observing and what we are observing on the ground as it pertains to the workforce of Bermuda. I would say that if we looked at it, our unemployment rate has doubled since the last time we've measured unemployment, and so certainly there is a need for the Ministry of Labor and the Bermuda to provide intervention.
I think everybody understands that, but months on, we're now looking for some, like I said, some basic facts and figures. Where do we stand now? Where were we 6 months ago? And that's, that's the question that's being asked. It's, if you say that you can see things that are improving, then can we have some information on that? Where are the figures?
One thing I'm certain about is if we open up those closed categories to non-Bermudians, certainly it does improve the ability for Bermudians to get gainful employment. So plus, all face value, what we would attempt to do is put more time in labor statistics so that they're all on the same page. But certainly to suggest that the policies that were put in place are needed at this time.
And can you provide what can you provide now? More, you've been asked for it for several days.
You've asked me for it.
Through the communication. Yeah.
I will be making a statement tomorrow in the House regarding the phase 2 of our reemployment plan, and part of that would have data on what we've done in phase 1. And so I think what you're looking for is absolute numbers in particular areas, and that's not the being measure. There's no measure that tracks the new hires of comedians within the economy, actually in closed categories. And so some of this we have to use secondary data to make primary assumptions.
Right. Okay, and one final question, if you don't mind, Minister. It's concerning the Wages Commission. Now, the Commission submitted its recommendation on the issue of minimum wage, and you stated that government isn't going to, basically it's going to go on the back burner until the Commission finishes its findings into living wage, which were another year. Now, I spoke to Robert Stubbs, who's a member of the Commission, and I don't know if you saw today's paper. He said that it would appear that government's sort of putting off making decisions because it could and should fix an issue of the minimum wage now, and it can implement that, and then further down the road start addressing the issue of the living wage and do it incrementally. And I know Chris Ferber, who was also on the Commission until he resigned, in fact he resigned over this issue, has made the same point. Why aren't we doing anything about the minimum wage now? Why put it off for a year or so?
So I disagree with what you just stated. Chris Ferber is actually saying we shouldn't be worrying about a minimum wage, and we should be worrying about a living wage. And Robert Stubbs is saying we should worry about implementing a minimum wage. Now, those are two different points by two commissioners who refused to sign a report.
Sure.
But what has been stated in the report, a suggestion of wage rates. What the government didn't want to do is move gun-ho with implementing a minimum wage rate, and then we get a living wage report that is contradictory to the in which we moved, and it causes us disruption or difficulty to adjust to that. And so what we want to see is that if we implement a statutory minimum wage that is in alignment with the living wage regime, to continuity in the program.
But surely that's the whole point, that if you by introducing a minimum wage, that's going to set the wage level at a certain rate, and then a living wage will be marginally higher than that, one would assume.
And
So you're moving in the same direction in both instances.
It sounds, but I think the measure in which we want to take is we want to ensure that we have all the information so we make the best decision. It's easy for us to make a decision. We want to ensure that we're making the best decision in the markets of this country. And to make the best decision, we need all the information available to us so that we can make that decision. I think it would be to have a deep with the to implement a minimum wage at X rate, and then come down a few more years down and have a shift in that wage to living wage, because that is what I recommended in a report. And so what we're trying to do is minimize that level of disruption. We want to have continuity between what is a statutory minimum rate and the living wage regime, so that moving forward, we can just build off of that.
Okay. Minister, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
All right.